Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Good afternoon, my Kardec Radio Spiritist listeners. So good to be here with you on this Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock. And of course, every Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock, we try to be here live with you. I was almost concerned about not being able to be here because we had a power outage last night about 11 o'clock, and the power didn't come back on until about 3 o'clock. So I was a little bit concerned, but here we are. Today, we will cover, obviously, the book, The Way, the Truth, and the Life, authored by Emmanuel, Spirit Emmanuel, through the mediumship of Francisco Candido Xavier. And today's message is number 102. Nope, wrong. It's 101. Everything in God. And everything in God. Yes, that's the right one, right? No, I am sorry. It is 102. The Christian and the world. We did 101 last week. So it's 102, the Christian and the world. And the quote is from Jesus and recorded by Mark. And of course, we'll read the message. Then we'll make some comments. Then we'll say a little closing prayer. And then we'll offer some encouragement. So let us get started with chapter 102, The Christian and the World. The quote from Jesus as recorded by Mark in chapter 4, verse 28 is, first the stalk, then the head, then the full grain in the head. And then Emmanuel goes on to write, no one finds it easy to grow spiritually. The master wisely resorts to living symbols from nature to facilitate our understanding of it. The stalk is far from being the head, just as the head is far from fully ripened grain. In this regard, the strongest opponent for the soul that wants to follow the Savior is the world itself. As long as ordinary people rest on the commonalities and the futilities of earthly life, nobody pays any attention to them. Their attitudes are of no interest to anyone, whoever they might be. However, the moment the tender stalk of rectifying faith first surfaces in their hearts, their life becomes an object of interest to everybody. Thousands of eyes that did not see them when they were astray in ignorance and indifference now follow their smallest gestures with heightened alertness. Humble aspirants to the title disciples of the Lord are still only stalks with promise, yet people already expect the heads of heavenly deeds. They are still a long way from possessing even the first growth of down on their spiritual wings. Yet people expect them to demonstrate lofty flights over heavenly miseries. Or I should say, over human miseries. Consequently, many new believers get discouraged and return to obscurity, where others cannot see them. The world forgets that these eager souls are still in their early hopes and are thus in a fierce struggle to burst through the shell of the lower passions in their longing to grow. Because of their ignorance, people only understand others in their animal-like state. But if any of them try to grow spiritually, then people suddenly expect the positive credentials of heaven, forgetting that No one can fool time or deceive the sequence of nature. It is left to Christians to cultivate their sublime purposes and heed the Master's words. First the stalk, then the head, then the full grain in the head. And of course, as usual, Emmanuel writes these stimulating messages using those New Testament quotes as the foreground for the message. And he normally does such a wonderful job in doing this. Right off the bat, he talks about no one finds it easy to grow spiritually. The Master wisely resorts to the symbols of nature for us to understand what he's talking about, that stalk, the head, and the full grain. And as Emmanuel says here, the stalk is far from being the head, just as the head is far from being the stalk. And of course, the world itself, here we are in this world, and that is the difficult. That's the strongest opponent, as he says, from us growing here, because we're in this materialistic society that, unfortunately, has a focus on our material aspects in life, and all too often concerned initially and many times only about ourselves, giving very little thought to other members of our family or our friends or our neighbors or other people that we might run into. These are how we grow spiritually, which is to be able to interact with the family members, with our friends and neighbors and other people that come into our lives maybe from a work environment or just from some type of excursion that you might have. But it really goes back to ourselves and being comfortable and understanding of our own selves and where we particularly are. That particular aspect of the Spirit's book about we must know ourselves to be able to grow. And as St. Augustine mentioned to us in the Spirit's book under that particular, I think it's 953 was the question. He does this examination of he used to do that examination of conscience every night, which is really the true confession. If you really want to break it down, because confession is between us and God and Jesus. It's not between. We don't need an intermediary, because we know each night as we rest our little head down on our pillow what we have done that's been of a plus side and what we have done that's been on the minus side. And these are the things that we react to. Something that's said by our spouse or one of our neighbors or one of the other family members, and instead of taking that deep breath and holding our tongue, we react, and it's not always a good reaction. So Emmanuel continues to go on here talking about ordinary people rest on the commonalities and futilities of earthly life. And of course, I love that word. I think it's a kind of I'm not quite sure that is a word, futilities, but of course, frutal in the dictionary means incapable of producing any useful result or pointless. And of course, unfortunately, that there's quite a few of us on the earth plane that fall into that category. And what he goes on to say in that same sentence, that nobody pays attention to them. But as soon as we try to surface our heart in some type of rectifying faith, then we attract interest. And I totally agree that when we are on a mission of doing the good, that definitely can happen to some of us. Many of us like to do the good and not have any particular person around watching us, but that doesn't always happen. One of the things that was given to me as we were reading this again this morning was that this whole idea that we are planted here on earth, and it gets into this analogy here that Emmanuel used about the stalk being planted in the ground. And of course, we as humans were allowed to be planted here on earth, and we're supposed to use, or the prime model and guide is Christ's teachings and examples, and these are supposed to stimulate our spiritual growth. However, as Emmanuel writes here, there are many that delay their progress and growth. They lie dormant. And why is that? Because of the interest in these earthly, sensual type of pleasures, like wine and maybe too many drugs, money, fame, overeating, or just eating nutritionless food. And of course, the good old sexual addiction. All of these things hold us back and keep us in a dormant state. We don't progress. Yet some of those, like fame and money, they if used properly, can be instruments for our growth. Sharing our money for our growth by sharing the money for the good, where you purchase and distribute food for many of the homeless people. There, especially during this epidemic, the need for the food has certainly gone up because so many people weren't working, at least initially. Now they seem to be plenty of jobs, but still there are people that aren't working as much maybe as a lot of people would like, but there's always some particular reason why that is, and it's more than the fact that the government is supplying money to people that are unemployed. Also, you can buy school supplies and help deliver them to a school, or to low-income families with children. You could purchase clothes and diapers and deliver those to the organizations that support mothers and their new babies. There are several. These are just several examples of living a life that demonstrates volunteering to help those in need. All of these actions can be done by those, even by those on reduced income. You just make your donations smaller of the food and the clothing and the school supplies. We can still do something, and of course, never forget praying. That's always a major contribution from the spiritual side. And all of us can encourage family members and friends to help others at whatever level that they can afford to do it, while we must be an example ourselves and not reacting to those who might try to discourage us, as Emmanuel has written here, by reminding us of our part, our past. They try to discourage us because they remind us of our past, where we might have been a little bit lazy and we disregarded the family and friends and weren't too keen about our neighbors either. And they're always ready to judge us. And this, Emmanuel writes, is a fierce struggle. And to burst through it's difficult, because others only see us from the animal-like perspective. More time is needed for us to slowly continue to fertilize our growth by continually seeking the good, feeling the good, seeing the good, and doing the good. This and only this pursuit of the good is what will ensure that we slowly grow above the earthly distractions and use the good to get us through the difficult journey to eventually blossom for God. And this is what we wrote up for this particular reading, because I think it's one way you grow spiritually and you keep yourself humble, as he was saying. Humble aspirants to the title of disciples of the Lord are still only stalks with promise, yet people already expect the heads of heavenly deeds. And the small things are the things that make an enormous difference. Anyway, you don't have to do anything spectacular. As we mentioned before, prayer is just an enormous one that can be done for people when you may not be able to get around to buying food and distributing it, or clothing, or even school supplies. There's always the fallback position of prayer, and prayer opens the doors for other things that we can do. Remember, God wants us to grow, and sometimes you have to step up, and and God will give you the opportunity to grow. When the task at hand is given to you, it's given to you, and you might be a little bit fearful of it, but God's not going to present a task to you that he must be confident that you're going to be able to do this, to put this in your way. And you must have the trust, you must build the trust in God to be able to overcome that little bit of fear and carry on with it, because none of us are perfect yet. We've got this lifetime and many, many more lifetimes to perfect ourselves, to continually fertilize that spirit, to cultivate it, as Emmanuel says, to have it to grow. And we don't want to get discouraged by other people that may be expecting too much of us, or somewhat critical and sometimes sarcastic about how we have changed. And you don't want to lay down. Let's see. There is one other thing I wanted to, before we say our prayer, there's one other reading I wanted to bring in to this, and I wanted to say hello to Marcia and to Gabriel. And Marcia says, Yogananda used to say that, see the good, do the good, think the good. Yes, well, it just shows you how in alignment Spiritism is with all of the wonderful philosophies and religions that there are out there, because that's one of our mottos, right? To feel the good, seek the good, visualize the good, and mold the good. And Gabriel says, it seems there are two kinds of things we have to do, to face, to be strong against vices and bad invitations. Learn how to love, sometimes forgiving others. At least in my case, these are the most difficult ones. Please pray for me, or to me. God bless us. Thanks for reminding me about that important advice. We have to learn how to know ourselves in order to evolve. Yes, right on, Gabriel. We all have these difficulties. And of course, the family brings out probably the most challenging things. And as we've talked about before, this virus had a lot of encouragement from God, and it gave us time to first, or for many of us, not, of course, not all of us, but of course, many of us, to contemplate and reconcile within ourselves, and then to reconcile within our family. And you take that opportunity, as long as you present the opportunity to your family member or your neighbor, for that matter. That's the only important thing. It's up to the other family member to be humble enough, just like you were humble enough to present that to them, and then you don't be concerned about it. You've done your part, and then you just continue to pray for them. That's the most important thing that we have to offer. There is this little book here. Vanessa talks about this Buddhist monk, Thich Nhat Hanh. He's got this. I don't know whether you guys can see that. Yeah, there it is. How to Love. It's a little short book. It's got about 100 and some pages in it. And based upon this reading writing that Emmanuel did, I picked this one out, or we picked this one out. They had me reading he's got 6 mantras, which are really interesting. But the last one is the one that I thought really lined up with this chapter. And it's called "You Are Partly Right." The 6th mantra is, "You are partly right." When someone congratulates you or criticizes you, you can use this mantra. I have weaknesses in me, and I also have strengths. If you congratulate me, I shouldn't get lost and ignore that there are negative things in me. When we see the beautiful things in the other person, we tend to ignore the things that are not so beautiful. We are human, so we have both positive and negative things in us. So when your beloved one congratulates you and tells you that you are the very image of perfection, you say, "You are partly right. You know that I have the other things in me also." In this way, you can retain your humility. You are not a victim of illusion because you know that you're not perfect. Not yet, anyway. And when another person criticizes you, you can also say, "You are partly right." I thought that was a wonderful way to finish up the commentary on this particular chapter. So let us close our eyes and take a little breath in and release. Dear God above, dear Mother God, who rules the earth, and Lord Jesus, Mother Mary, and mentor spirits, the spirits that surround us, encourage us, and guide us. We are so grateful to be able to be here and offer and read these messages and to talk about them. We know that there are always challenges in this life, and we are here to learn how to overcome those particular challenges. Each day, the opportunity is presented to us, and it's up to us to continually be aware of the situation and to know that the spirits are with us to help us. Prayer is one way of always ensuring that the spirits are there by our side, offering assistance. Let us offer up, or let me say, let us request that God bestow upon the earth the healing energy and love that's so infinitely there at all times. We have so many people that are suffering from this virus and from other illnesses, and let it stream down, as my beautiful friend Carolina mentioned yesterday in our 6 o'clock prayer. Let it stream down through the heavenly atmosphere across the earth and through each country in our United States and into our own state we may reside and into our city and little community, our neighbors, through our friends, and ultimately into our family. And let it also be distributed among those people that may be criminals, those people that may be considering that horrible fate of suicide, people who are mentally disturbed, immigrants that may be awaiting entry into our country. So many people that need our prayer and our thoughts to help us evolve in this planet that we are now going through in this regeneration phase. Once again, we thank you for the opportunity to be here today and for your guidance and protection, and requesting your permission to end this particular prayer. And so be it. Thank you all for being here. Gabriel asked me, was this book psychographed? Where can I buy it? Gabriel, it might have been psychographed for all I know, but because I don't know the spirits that hang around Thich Nhat Hanh, I bought this as the spirits always do. I was shopping in one of my favorite health food stores here in the Washington, D.C. area. It's called Mom's, My Organic Market. And they just, as I was walking out, they just happened to have these books there. And he's written a lot of different ones. This one is how to love. He's got one about how to walk, and there's like 3 or 4 other ones, which I'm sure you'll enjoy. But this is, I'll show you the let's see, come on over here. And let's see, that's it, How to Love. Thich Nhat Hanh. And I'll put that down here. And remember, we have to always encourage people, and most of you know, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the Kardec Radio is here to help us nourish our souls. So good day, my friends, and I totally enjoyed this. Thank you very much.